Thought I'd play around in Blender a little bit today. I might as well stream it. This is not going to be the type of video to tune in for exciting reviews of my designs or anything like that. I'm just sitting here working on stuff. Figured I might as well put it up, make it live, and if you guys want to join in and chat, feel free to do so. I'm going to be working today on the modular vehicle system that I'm messing around with. I haven't even fully fleshed out that this is even going to work, but I guess we'll find out. And you can get a little insight into my design process, if you can even call it that. I don't usually plan stuff out very much. I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants when I do this. It's half the fun of it for me is just figuring stuff out as I go. what I'm doing here is I'm going to extrude that out so that I can run the connection through the body panel as well. That way, the screws can be run all the way through the body as well as the frame, and that should make a nice solid connection and lock those connector pieces in. I don't know, I might have to go back and revisit that and change it up a little bit. Like I said, I don't plan a whole lot when I do this. I just kind of wing it. Yeah, I like that better. I think. Maybe. Bring that out a tad. Round that out a little more. Yeah. Apparently my stream health isn't good. Maybe running Blender and streaming at the same time is a little rough on this whole computer. Sorry. Sometimes I'm just playing around with stuff and seeing what some of these things do, because quite honestly, I'm not well versed in this program. I learned 3D modeling on 3ds Max, and this is quite a bit different. But 3ds Max did not want to run on my old computer, so this computer, it's old. So I decided to download Blender and give it a try and try and figure out what the heck I'm doing. Oh, I imagine when I hit render on this, it's really going to mess with my CPU. camera is all kinds messed up. Let's see here. Let's put it over here. Treat it that way. That's weird. Apparently my rendering camera is not liking the size or the distance that it is from the model. Something. I don't know. And you get better renders when you add a flat surface underneath, which that plane is way too huge. Scale it down. Add a couple light sources. Slide that one down a little bit. Too much light, or it's too close. Let's get rid of that one. Still too much light. Too close. Let's move it away. Let's move that one away. Okay, I've added more light than this before, and it hasn't been that washed out. It's not looking horrible, though. I can still get a basic idea of what I'm wanting to see. Yeah, I think that's going to work just fine. So what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of building the body, and that's going to be attachable to each segment here, which I haven't done the measurements for the cab yet. I may have to make some adjustments to the frame piece that doesn't have wheels, or maybe use multiple frame pieces. Excuse me. Ideally, I would like to be able to make this so that you print out however many frame pieces you need, ones that have axles on them and ones that don't. Choose the wheels you want and the tires you want. You print those out. You stick those on the axles. You print the connectors to connect all the frame pieces together, and then you choose a body piece in the corresponding size rating. Like this is going to be the heavy frame for like large trucks and large vehicles. And so you would print out and put together the lower frame and the wheels and tires that you wanted, and then you would choose like which front section you want, which cab you want, and you could add, like if we decide to make this like a sleeper cab truck, then you would add another section, and the sleeper cab would attach to it. So I don't know. It's still very much a work in progress. And like I said, I should, but I don't draw stuff out ahead of time. I like to design on the fly and just see where it takes me. I'm wishing I had made the fender a little smoother. I know there's a modifier that I can do that with, which I believe is the subdivision surface modifier, but right now I'm not liking how that is making not only making it smaller, but it's messing up the inner edges of the fender. So I don't want to do that either. I know there's something I can do, and see, so whenever I am trying to figure stuff out, I end up a lot of times myself having to Google something. I know there's something to add weight to the edges, and so I'm going to have to Google that right now, so that when I use a subdivision surface modifier, it doesn't mess with all of the edges. Try this. Okay, so what I did there, it adds a crease, which is supposed to prevent the subdivision surface modifier from affecting that edge, and it's still messing with. Okay, I think one thing that might be causing me a problem is I have the inside of the fender well right now. There's a there's an ingon, which I think an ingon is any shape with more than 4 sides, and I think that's messing with the subdivision surface modifier. Oh, and that can't be helping it either. What the? Okay, that could be a problem. Same thing going back here. My allergies are driving me nuts today, so I'll try not to cough directly at the microphone, but let's try that. Let's think closer to what I'm wanting right there. Alright, so since I did all that stuff to fix this side but not this side, I am going to just delete this side. And then I'm going to add a modifier for a mirror modifier, and we're going to mirror it along the Z, not the X. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to remove the subdivision modifier for a moment because somewhere along the line that didn't get capped properly. And I should probably try to cap that before applying the modifier too. And doing each individual section like this will avoid having n-gons. It's going to create me another problem whenever I do a Boolean operator though and combine these two pieces. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And I'm sure there's probably some sort of hotkey or something that makes this all easier. The beauty of not truly knowing what you're doing. Sometimes you got to do stuff the hard way. It'll make me more appreciative of the easy way when I learn it though. Since there's nobody here watching at the moment, I'm just going to go ahead and hide the chat and the chat frame. If somebody shows up, then I will put it back on. That way so you can see better what I'm doing. I was watching Tanner3D's stream last night, and as I told him, someone I'm sure that knows what they're doing is going to come in here and see what I do at some point, and I'm going to catch some grief from them over doing things totally wrong. But that's okay. At least I'm trying, right? Alright, so now we're going to bring the body back. We're going to go back into modifiers, and we're going to add subdivision surface modifier again. Why did I not make that surface? Okay. Removed it. I did not. Okay. Well, that makes sense. That's why it was rounding that off, because I didn't make a crease there. Tab back out. Go back into modifiers and add subdivision surface modifier. That's looking better. Oh, I think 2 subdivisions might be enough. I'm thinking 3 will be overkill and create too many polys. And actually, can I get away with 1? Wish one of the 3D printing experts was here right now to tell me exactly how much resolution I could expect a 3D printer to pick up. If I want these fenders to be smooth, just how many polys should I make that? Alright, well, we won't apply the modifier yet in case I can get away with less, and I can still go more. Once you apply the modifier, it's not something you can undo later. But the thing I love about modifiers is because they are non-destructive, of course, until they're applied, you can play around with stuff. Like you can see here, the geometry, the original geometry is still there; it's unchanged. The modifier is just showing us in the viewport. What its final result will be once applied. Move the origin to the 3D cursor on that, and that too. The cursor's on center, so that way whenever I put a mirror modifier on that, we mirror it along the Z, not the X. And a mirror modifier on that, Z, not the X. Which really, that's just for my, excuse me, that's for my benefit only while I'm designing this. And that light is still a bit much. In fact, let me see if it's too dark if I turn it off. I'm a little more blue, I guess, but looks like you can still see me okay. Guess maybe my room light over here might help. Turning that light on as well. See if that's enough light for now. Guess the other light did look brighter, better, but it was looking a little too washed out to me. Okay, so anyhow, mirroring the wheels and the tires, because when you're printing this thing, you only need the file once for each, for the wheel and for the tire, and you just print it out as many times as you need it. But I find visually it helps me when I'm designing something to be able to see what the end result is going to look like, and I'm liking how that's looking so far. Oh, my dog's under my desk. I'm going to pop my chat out. Then I can go back over here to OBS, and I can leave my chat window here. Hey, Country3D, I was just talking about you, man. Just talking about watching your stream last night, and talking about me not knowing what the heck I'm doing on this thing. So I'm glad you could join me, man. Well, I guess now that there's people here, I'm just learning the whole OBS thing as well. I watched yesterday. I didn't have any of the overlay stuff or anything like that, and so I watched. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did make it. Yeah, I watched a few YouTube videos, tutorials on OBS, and I used to be a graphic artist, so I sat down and opened up Photoshop and made a few graphics and stuff to use as overlays. And I've got one for the chat, but I just turned it off a little bit ago because nobody was here. Now that you're here, man, I can see how it looks. Might be a little too transparent. Okay, well that lets me know right there that I need to make some adjustments. Go in here to properties real quick and remove the transparency off the chat background for right now in the CSS. There we go. Oh, what to leave it on your channel? Was it too long, or did you take a break somewhere in the middle when I wasn't watching? Yeah, I think I'm going to have to dive a little more into the CSS styling of the chat and maybe adjust the graphic a little bit. I was trying to do something that was slightly transparent, so if I was doing something on this side of the screen, someone could still, if they paid close attention, see what I was doing. But that may not be a viable option. I may have to just go with a solid color background. Oh, okay. I've got all my stuff just set on auto. Whatever it turns out to be, I guess it turns out to be. And this is a pretty cheap webcam. But no, so I'm designing. Since you just come in, I'm designing a GI Joe scaled, 1/18 scale for 1/18 scale action figures. A modular vehicle system Um, so basically the plan is people would be able to print out these frame pieces here, you see here, and they'd be able to print out these frame pieces, and then these little pieces, they'd print out as many connectors as they need, and they could connect multiple pieces together. They've got holes through them so that you could run a screw, which until I get a chance to print one out, I won't know what size of screw. You'll be able to run a screw through it to snugly hold those connectors together, or if you don't want to use screws, you can just glue them together. Um, but anyway, you'd print the frame pieces that you want, as many as you needed for as long of vehicles you're making, as many wheels and tires as you make axles for, and then that way I could design multiple different body pieces that would literally just screw right on to this one frame design. So you would be able to print out whatever body pieces. Yeah, it says my stream health isn't real good, so I imagine um, this old computer just can't handle it. So I imagine I will have a pretty big delay in stuff just with the computer, I guess, trying to keep up itself, because my internet connection is good. My internet connection's solid. We get 100 meg per second here, but yeah. So the idea is they'll be able to print out the frame pieces, and I want to make these frame pieces so they're interchangeable with multiple different bodies and things like that. So um, when I sit down to design a new vehicle, all I'll be designing is these body shells that will just screw straight into the frame I've already designed. It'll cut the design time down dramatically. And then I can just have literally a folder that's full of different tire designs, a folder full of different wheel designs that are all compatible with this. And then people can download these files, and they'll be able to literally just keep on tap, like if they wanted to, lay it out like I've been laying it out on my system, where you just keep a folder that's full of wheels, a folder that's full of tires, uh, uh, one folder that's got the different sizes and types of frame sections in it, and then you would just sit down and literally just one file at a time choose your vehicle parts and print it out and put it together. So if it works out. I'm doing something similar with 1/18 scale buildings as well. I don't know if you watched my first video, but I've got to go back and do a lot of stuff with it, because I'll go ahead and show you that real quick. The each one of these panels is totally modular, which I'll just hide the other stuff. I went through and spent hours narrowing down these divider sections, and I forgot to save it. I went to bed, and Windows did an update and restarted my computer, and I lost 3 hours worth of work. So now I'm trying to remind myself to more frequently save. But yeah, these wall panels will be totally modular as well. Some of the stuff that I did when I was tweaking to try and make it better was I reduced the size of these tabs a little bit so that I could make these pieces thinner, and I took out some of the additional thickness that you can see there. Made all that thinner, but the idea with the building will be that you can design it, and each one of these is about 6 inches across, but I have some preliminary plans for some that are going to require me to be able to print that 12 inch by 12 inch size. Oh man, that would be awesome. Yeah, if you could print out some stuff and give it a whirl, that would since I don't have a printer to test it, that would uh, help me out tremendously. So when I get to a point, especially with this modular stuff, because until I can print it out and put my hands on it, I'm not really, or somebody can print it out and put their hands on it, I'm not really secure in the idea of sharing it with the world just to have you know, a bunch of people gripe at me for wasting filament because something didn't work. But yeah, as you can see with this this wall here, which I'm going to just move that on the y-axis, they interlock both horizontally and vertically. But so yeah, you'd be able to, which this is not the right one. The one that anyway, this is supposed to be flush with those bricks. But when that gets fixed again, the way it was supposed to be, that you won't see the seam as much in the bricks. But you'll be able to print out and make as big a building as you want. 6 inches square at a time on the small panels, and then the larger panels, like for having, oh hey Rover, the larger panels that I'll design, because you know I'll have to design panels that have windows and doors and things like that, and so the larger panels will have like I have I plan on making one that's got a dock door, one that's got a garage door, um, one that has multiple windows and things like that. So some of those I'll need to be able to print the 12-inch by 12-inch size, which is why I'm looking for a printer that has at least that 300 millimeter squared build plate, because that will not be possible on a machine like the Prusa, which, you know, I would love to have a Prusa Mark III like you have, but you know, when it would come to making those larger panels, um, unless I broke them apart and then made registration marks and tried to glue them together, which, you know, is possible, it's doable, but it would, I think, streamline my process better if I was able to just print them full size. Oh, okay. That's in YouTube settings. See, I'm totally new to this stuff. So let me go over here to my YouTube dashboard and see if there's something. Is that under? Oh, well, I guess YouTube stream options say there is no added delay. I'm at the low latency setting, which it says is best for near real-time interaction with minimal playback buffering. Maybe next time I should try ultra low latency. This is, yeah. Or maybe is there anything in OBS that settings wise that maybe I'm. Maybe I'm not seeing here. Yeah, you're right, Rover. The CR10S5 would definitely handle that. Um, but I've watched a number of videos in which the CR10S5 suffers bad from ghosting, and I think it's just because of it moving around such a large bed that maybe it's actually getting a little too large. The CR10S4 videos I've seen don't seem to have the same ghosting issues, but I'm certainly, you know, the reviews I've seen on the CR10S5, they've almost all had some ghosting issues, like they'll print their benchy and the little holes up towards the front of the bow would continue multiple times out past the hole. And I think it was just like because of changing direction on that much mass. they were getting those ghosting effects. Yeah, I'll have to hit Glenn up about some stuff. Maybe send him an email or a message on Facebook or something and ask him what I'm doing wrong. But like I said, maybe I need to go to the ultra low latency settings. But unfortunately, you can't do that on the fly, so I would have to stop the stream and start a new one, and I may end up doing that if it's unbearable. Cool, man. Yeah. If I get when I get to a point where I've got these ready to go, I will certainly I will send you the STL files, man. You're welcome to them. You're welcome to any of the STL files that I end up making here. Um, and if you guys have never used Blender before, it's really cool. There's Blender is open source, and with Blender you can add stuff to it like plugins, and where's that? Where's that? Oh, user preferences. So you go into user preferences on Blender, which there it goes. The add-ons. So you go into add-ons and you can search for add-ons and some of the and you add the stuff you want. Like I added this one that's called Measure It, and what that allows me to do is choose 2 points on the screen and make a measurement, and I can measure in millimeters. So as I'm designing, I can sit here with my trusty ruler in hand, which is over here, with my trusty ruler in hand, and I can use references from other 1/18 scale vehicles I have, and measure how wide they are and how long they are and things like that, and try to match up what I'm designing so that the scale stays pretty true. Also, if I can find blueprints online, check the setting. Found the setting on the chat window. There's a gear. Check the setting there. You can disable slow mode. Okay, hold on. Will it let me do that during a chat or during a stream? I've got the enable live chat, enable slow mode. What is it? Slow mode forces chat participants to wait. No, I see. Mine's unchecked already. Yeah, I've got enabled live chat checked, but enable slow mode is unchecked. It might just simply be that the age of my computer and trying to stream while running Blender at the same time just might be too much for it to handle. I don't know. Pop that chat back out again, because I had to restore chat from the pop out before it would let me see the gear. You can't mess with the gear while it's popped out. But no, yeah, I don't have slow chat turned on, so it's just this computer that I'm using is, it was a pretty hefty computer when I bought it, but I bought it 10 years ago. It's a old HP workstation, so it's, you know, it's got dual Xeons in it, and and all the RAM that a 32-bit operating system will handle, but it does unfortunately still have a 32-bit operating system in it. The computer is capable of running a 64-bit because it's the Xeon processors, but it came with a 32-bit when I bought it, because I bought it as a refurbished discount machine, and it came with a 32-bit version of Windows, and so I just used it as it was. And then when I looked into upgrading to 64-bit Windows later, I found out that I would literally have to completely eradicate everything on my hard drive and start over, because you can't upgrade from 32 to 64 without it being a totally fresh install. So I've just got my sights set on getting a new computer anyway. I mean, there's no sense in me pouring more money and time into this one because it's so old. It's so old. Because when I bought it 10 years ago, it was a refurb unit that wasn't, you know, the latest and greatest at the time. But oh, for your giveaways, Rover. Which I could be having some trouble with my internet today because we did have some pretty nasty storms roll through the area last night. So who knows? Maybe there's, you know, something going on there. Uh, I know everything was working. I was watching YouTube videos on my TV this morning, and it's connected to my Wi-Fi, and I wasn't having any trouble loading the videos. And usually, if I'm having any sort of internet trouble, it takes a while for a video to load on my TV because, you know, TVs don't have the same computing power as a computer, or even in most cases a smartphone. Yeah, I'll have to look into that, Rover. But as you know, like Country3D was saying last night, I'd have to make sure it wasn't something that was going to sign me up for more spam. I get tons and tons of spam as it is, just because of having to make my email address for my music stuff so publicly available. I think there are some haters out there that have intentionally submitted my email address to some lists. So I've gotten I get hundreds of spam emails every day already, and so as long as it's not something that's going to start spamming me with more, um, I've got tons of spam filters set up, and I still get 100 or so through every day that find a way through because they've reworded stuff in a way that my spam filter doesn't catch it. Anyhow, as I was saying about Blender earlier, back to that, you can add these add-ons, and these add-ons are really cool because, like I said, I can measure stuff in millimeters, which again, it helps me keep scale applied to the vehicle appropriately, and it also helps me, or building or whatever I'm making, but it also helps me because it's in millimeters. I can make sure it's going to fit on a print bed and all that kind of stuff. Um, and then the other add-on that I've got that has been immensely helpful, there's actually one called a 3D printing toolbox, which I guess the chat window is probably in the way of you guys seeing that. I'm going to switch to screen only for a minute to get rid of the chat so you guys can see that. The 3D printing toolbox here. So I select a part and I can hit this check all, and then what it does for me when I'm in edit mode, it lets me know if there are any potential problems. Now, slicers all seem to deal just fine with thin faces and overhang faces. Overhang face usually just means it's going to require some support to print right. Um, the thing to really concern yourself with, the only thing to really concern yourself with, is as you guys probably know, 3D prints have to be manifold. They have to be watertight, and so you're looking for anything that's a non-manifold edge. And so every part that I make, I run the check all on it, and then if there's a non-manifold edge, it will, just like I can click on thin faces here, and it shows me all the faces that it considers to be thin faces. I'll be able to click if there was a non-manifold edge on that, and it would highlight the non-manifold edges, and then I can go back and try to tweak the geometry a little bit to fix that. All right, so I'll bring the chat back so you guys can see each other here if you're maximized. So, all right, so let's see. Don't need to do anything to the tires. So I'm going to use the 3D printing toolbox to check the fender there, which is showing that it's got some thin faces. But like I said, thin faces and overhang faces don't really seem to be an issue because I downloaded a slicer, and as I would finish parts, I would just go ahead and save them as an STL and bounce them over into the slicer and see if it sliced. And I didn't have any problems slicing models that had overhang faces or thin faces, even even some that had you know, non-flat faces and things like that. It was still slicing them fine. But anything that would have a non-manifold edge or a bad contiguous edge, there would be problems slicing it. So if I run into that issue, which I will most certainly whenever I do the Boolean operator to make these two pieces here, the fenders and the hood, one piece, because I want them to print out as one piece. I'm still tweaking the fenders. I'm probably going to move the bottom edges of them up a little bit. And so I can't do my Boolean operator until I get them positioned in their final position. I think moving them up a little bit looks nice. I am going to get a subdivision modifier on those right now. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to go into I might I think I might remove the bottom section of the front edge of the fender there, because it looks like it hangs down about one poly there lower than I wanted to. So what I'll do there is I will select all of those vertices and delete just those vertices. And I think that will probably create less problems when it comes time to print it, if that's not, you know, jutting down below the bottom level of the rest of the body there. Which hotkeys, I've learned a few of them are wonderful. When you're going to create a face on this, you just select the edges across from each other and you hit the F key, and it creates a face between the two. It's not too bad. And you want to make sure that there are no open holes like that one, because an open hole is obviously not manifold. It's not watertight. So let's see here. It looks about level. Close to it. All right, I think I'm ready to try the Boolean operator. So before I do that, I'm going to save. Because if it goes horribly wrong, the best thing to do is just to open it from your last save point. So what a Boolean operator does is, if you're not familiar with 3D modeling, is it takes two pieces and performs an operation on them, which can be one of a number of things. So I'll go to Tools here, and I'll select these two pieces, which actually I think before I do that, I have to apply my modifiers. I do. Okay, so I'm going to apply the mirror modifier I have on that piece. I'm going to apply the mirror modifier I have on that piece. Now, you guys know more about 3D printing than I do, and so I'm glad you're here. Oh, that reminds me that ever since I cut that edge off, I have to make it a hard edge again by making it a crease on it again. What a crease does is, just like it would in your clothes, it's a wrinkle that stays there, basically. And so you're creating a hard edge. So when I go to apply this subdivision surface modifier, it will not smooth that edge. So I can keep that edge sharp. So okay, you guys are better at 3D printing stuff, obviously, than I am, because I don't have one. And I'm applying the subdivision surface modifier, which what that does is smooths out the edges. Without it, this is what it looks like, and I know that's enough resolution that the boxes, the little squares, would show up in the print, and I don't want that. So I wanted to smooth out the fender a little bit, and so what I'm I guess going to have to wait for you guys to answer because of the delay, is how fine is that going to pick up in most printers' resolution? Like if I do a subdivision surface modifier here at view 1, will that print out smooth, or do I need to step it up, which is going to give me more polys and increase file size, to 2, or do I need to go all the way up to 3 where it starts even looking smooth on a 3D viewport on a monitor? So yeah, I know 0 with no subdivision modifier, we're going to see those squares, and I don't want to see the squares. So my question will be simply 1, 2, or 3. In order for that to print fairly smooth. Before I do the Boolean operator, I see another thing I'm going to have to clean up on this piece. So while while I wait for the delay and for you guys to have a chance to weigh in, so I would have to save the file out as an STL and then slice it to see. Okay. thing that I'm seeing here is, I guess my two mirrored halves overlapped each other a little bit, and that's going to cause a problem when I go to okay, that makes sense. So it looks like, yeah. So when I had my mirror modifier, when I had this piece mirroring itself over on the other side, it actually, because it overlapped the center point a little bit, you can see that it ended up creating multiple spots where they overlapped, and those are going to cause a problem because you don't want overlapping faces, because those will definitely not be manifold. So I know it's a bit of a pain, but I need to go through and merge all of those duplicate which I don't know what that mess is. Wow. Okay. That looks like there's a face on the inside. There is. Okay, you never want faces on the inside. An inside face will definitely cause you some issues. So I'm going to delete that face, delete that face. Let's see, did that create a hole? No. Okay. So now I need to go back into the wireframe view. Deleting that face made it not so ugly to look at. Well, I'm trying to figure out how to fix my problem there. Okay, well, then I'll probably, it looks fairly smooth to me, I think, at a subdivision level of 2. Because it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. I just don't want it to be really blocky and squared off. So you need to go through and 2 at a time merge these vertices at the center. Because they overlapped each other, and that will cause a problem. Thankfully, it's a fairly low poly model, so that shouldn't really be that big a deal. And again, I'm sure someone who actually knows what they're doing in this program would have avoided the mistake in the first place, and then or if they managed to make the mistake, they would be able to fix it a lot easier than I am. But this is just what I've learned so far. And if what little knowledge I've gained of it so far can help you guys, if you decide to give Blender a whirl. Because Blender, the awesome part about it is and I ended up with faces in the middle again. Gosh. It's completely open source. So you're open source designing for open source printers. You got to love the whole open source factor of it all. It's all open source. It's beautiful. So if you're making designs on an open source software and printing on an open source computer or open source printers, it's awesome. Oh, that's why it was doing that to me. Okay. But I think I've just about got them all, because you can see here they overlapped each other. And that meant it created 2 vertices in a point where it only needed 1. And so what I'm doing is going through and selecting the pair of vertices that should have just been one, hitting Alt-M on my keyboard to merge the two, and I'm selecting to merge them at the center, which should keep everything centered over the center point of the build screen, the area that I'm working with. So yeah, before I started doing all that, did you see how like the line looked really like thick and dark there, and it shouldn't have, and now it looks like all the other lines. It's just a single line. So like I said, it's a fairly low poly count design, other than the fenders now, because once I apply that subdivision modifier, so I don't think it needs 3. I don't think most printers will pick that up bad enough to make it look really awful. And I guess if your printer is high enough resolution to print all those little squares, then you can knock them down with some sandpaper in a matter of a few seconds. And you've got a really good printer. And I'm jealous. I bet the Prusa would pick up those little squares, actually. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. Here we go. Applying the modifier. Oh, wait. I'm going to save first before I do. Save. Okay. Apply. So now you see that's gone away. The modifiers, as long as they're still showing up over here and haven't been applied, they're non-destructive, which means you can always undo them with no damage to your original model whatsoever, which is the awesome part about working with modifiers. Unfortunately, when I go to use the Boolean stuff, it has to be done in object mode, and once you do it, it sometimes can't be undone. So I'm going to save now. I'll select these 2 pieces, go over to the Bool tools, that's the Boolean operators, and I want to create a union, which will combine the 2 objects I selected, the fenders and the hood, fenders here and the hood. It will combine them into one mesh, which once it combines them into one mesh, I'll have to go back in and clean some stuff up because it's going to create some artifacts. There's just no way around it. So clicking union, and now I'm going to go back to the screen only view so you guys can watch this, because it's going to be fun. So yeah, the subdivision modifier, see how many polys it created now on the fenders? How the fenders have way more polys than the rest of what I've designed, but they're smooth and rounded. And in order for something to be smooth and round, it has to have a higher poly count. All right, so I combine these. They're now one object. And it seems to have done it a lot cleaner than I anticipated. That's shocking, really. All right, well, we'll see exactly how clean it did it, because I'm going to go here to the 3D printing toolbox, and I'm going to click the check all button. Okay, so we got a few things that it wants to point out to us. An intersect face. Okay, and why we have that is this edge comes down and meets this edge. But again, most of the time that I've exported something to a slicer and tried to slice it with intersect faces, it hasn't had a problem. It hasn't had a problem with non-flat or thin faces or overhang faces. I'm sure these are all things that you need to be, aware of and conscious of while you're designing, but I don't think that most slicers ultimately have a problem with it. Because like overhang faces, it's gonna, anything that's greater than a, or would be unsupported, it's gonna read it as an overhang face. And so again, that just means it'll want support material, which, you know, as flat as that is, you probably won't need support material on the bottom, but you will need support material under here to go up and under the hood area there. It won't be probably any way around that. Intersect faces, I'm hoping aren't a problem. You can go back and clean those up. It's a little harder sometimes. I'm going to attempt to clean this up here, and we'll see. Because if I select these two vertices right here, I try to merge them at the center, we'll see. Didn't seem to affect my geometry too bad. And now if I click check all, our intersect faces are gone. So that's odd that it didn't intersect on, didn't create an intersect face there. Well, just to go ahead and for the sake of cleaning things up, I'm going to merge those two vertices also. It might create a teeny tiny artifact there when printing, but it won't, yeah, I mean, it probably won't be noticeable. So there we go. We got fenders, we got a hood, and ready to move on, I guess, to the next section. That I can't believe that Boolean operator went that smooth. I don't think I've ever had a Boolean operator go that smooth. Regular scene now that we got. Yeah, I can't believe that Boolean operator went that smooth. It's insane. Because usually when I do a union like that, a Boolean operator, all the places that the one piece touches the other will create all sorts of non-manifold edges that I have to go back and clean up. And for some reason, this one just went smooth. I'll just count my blessings today and call myself a lucky guy for the moment. Oh, well, I've got to do another Boolean operator in all this. And I should be renaming stuff as I go, and I'm not. It's awful, horrible habit to be in. But I need to drill the holes through the piece so that when people screw it together, they'll be able to run the screw that will go through the bottom frame piece. It'll go through the connector and through the body. And then, you know, like I said, if you don't want to use screws, you can glue it, but then even then you could use a dowel or something to make sure your pieces are lined up before you glue it together, which is hopefully beneficial as well. So anyhow, get out of the edit mode for that. We'll go to this. Actually, I should probably do this from this view right here. And I want to move it. I click the X button and it will lock it to the X axis so that as I move it, it will not stray from the X axis. So that way I can line that up perfectly with my hole, because I knew my hole was lined up perfectly along the X axis there. What, Joey? Little doggy's over there growling. Turn that heater off. I don't know if you could hear it, but it was actually cold upstairs this morning. And rather than turn the heat up in the whole house, because the rest of the house seemed pretty nice, it just cold up here. Just turned on this little space heater for a minute. Well, for a while. It's been a few minutes. Okay, so we're going to go use Boolean operators again. And every time I use Boolean operators, I save before I do, because if I click stuff in the wrong order or choose the wrong thing, it instantly messes everything up, and sometimes it won't let you undo. I've learned that lesson the hard way a couple times. Thanks for stopping by, man. I just noticed you were leaving. I've been so engrossed in looking and staring at the Blender screen, I wasn't watching chat. Hope I didn't miss you by too much. Joey, what's wrong, buddy? Come here. Joey. Hold on. Go see what's wrong with him. Are you wanting to play? Now is not the time. He's still young. He's only 2 years old, so he thinks all the time is playtime. Okay, so back to the Boolean operators, and we saved. So we're going to go to Tools. We're going to select this piece and then this piece. Is that right? No. No. I select this piece, then this piece. And so subtract selected objects from active object. Right? Yes. So as you can see now, we made a hole in this mesh. But, oh, it didn't connect it. Okay, see what I said about Boolean operators? Sometimes they don't like me. So there we go. So I'm going to try another tool under Loop Tools and bridge that, which it bridged itself a little twisted. Okay. I think I can fix that too. Rotate it around that way a little bit. Nope. Rotate it back around. Now it's closer. Should be less likely to create a problem. I didn't want it too far out of skew. Alright. So when we go back to this view, we select this piece, and yeah, we want it different. No! Hey, let me undo it. Cool. Oh, well, I probably need to duplicate this cylinder anyway, or do I already have it duplicated? I do already have it duplicated. Okay. So we want to select this one, then this one. Difference? No. See, I chose the wrong one. And so then it deleted everything. everything. And sometimes it won't let you undo that, which is why, again, I recommend saving before you do any Boolean operator. Nope. Why did it work so smoothly for the other one, but it's fighting me on this one? Well, this is weird. So I've tried subtracting and I've tried doing a difference, and either one of those should be removing that peg from the hole, from the piece, just like they did on this one. I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing something wrong. Because I did it right on the other one. I got what the desired result anyway. Yeah, it treated it like a union instead of a difference. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe my program's actually having problems. Oh, while I'm at it, I can see something else I need to clean up. Just like I cleaned up on the hood. I forgot to check down here. There's a gap in this one. But simple enough to fix. Alt-M for merge at the center. No. Oh, I just had another thing selected over there. You kinda, but not really. It doesn't work like Fusion 360 in that aspect. I wish it did. It's not quite the same thing. But maybe I just noticed that I still had those vertices selected over there, and maybe that was causing a problem with the Boolean operator. So after I finish merging these, which I need to get rid of the interfaces again. Delete face, delete face, face, delete face. Because that'll cause me a problem. Then go back to those. Alt-M, merge center. So you can see I'm just stitching that up. Brings everything together. And makes for a nice clean center point on the mesh. Okay. Well, now that I've done those things, let's try to once again select that, select that. I'm going to do it in wireframe mode over here so I can maybe catch something going on. No, it's just literally treating it like a union. I'm going to save, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. And then I'm going to try something. Because it looks like it's creating what I needed to create there, but it's just creating a heck of a lot more than I need. So if I delete those vertices, and I select these vertices here, and I delete those, well, that's weird too. Okay. It created the edges, but it didn't create the faces in between the edges. But that's simple enough to fix. Just select the two edges and hit the F key. Alright. Well, getting the view in the hole where I need to see is becoming the challenging part now. Sorry, I know I keep leaning out of camera, but I'm looking closely at my screen to make sure I grab those tiny little lines. Alright, I think that does it. Ha! I should have made those holes before I applied the mirror modifier. Okay, simple enough, simple enough. Okay, here's what we're going to do. In this view, we're going to make sure we get a straight on view, wireframe mode. We're going to grab all those vertices. I wanted vertices. Here we go. We're going to delete them. Then we're going to tab back out. And we're going to go to modifier, mirror. Look along the Y. not the X. There we go. And we're back to both halves being identical, having the holes where they need to be. So yeah, I think it's well underway. Oh yeah, yeah. Very much like working in Photoshop at the pixel level. But is what it is. You know, that's how I designed that step fan and the guard shack and all the other stuff. And if you watch my first video, the VSV Jeep that I'm making and all that stuff, and I'm immensely smoother and faster at this than I was when I made the first thing I made, which was the VSV. Um, so if you haven't watched that first video, watch that. You can see the VSV, and that was the very first thing that I tried to sit down and model in this program. I did have some schooling in 3D Studio Max, but I have no official training in Blender, and it's there's some similarities. There's definitely similarities, but there are a lot of things in 3ds Max that they do way differently than Blender does it. So is what it is. You just it's half a dozen one, 6 one, half a dozen the other. But it's like from a programming point of view, I got my education in C++ programming, and then I took a job as a PHP developer. And the funny thing was, when they asked me if I knew PHP, I said yes, and I had never touched PHP in my life. And they're like, "Great, you'll start on Monday." And that Friday, I went out and it was Friday that I had the job interview. So that Friday after the job interview, I went to a Barnes and Noble bookstore and picked up a PHP book, and I spent the weekend cramming on PHP. You know, the once you know how to code in one language, the logic of coding doesn't change. Logic is the same regardless of which language. It's just a matter of changing the syntax. It's the same thing with 3D modeling software. The overall process is the same. Um, Hold on, I got a phone call I got to take. Hello? Yes. Hi, how you doing? Sorry about that. No, these items are they're 1/18 scale. They are for I'm killing stuff over there. They are for GI Joes or similar action figures, any like 4-inch tall action figure. They should work for. And what did I kill over here? Oh, I knocked my custom painted Tonka. It was a Tonka tow truck, but I painted it up to look like Hoist from Transformers. I knocked it off the shelf. And then one piece I picked up that I thought that picked up at a Goodwill for, as you can see, for I don't know if you can see that, for $1.99. That's really cool. It's in the right scale, but it doesn't have like opening doors or an interior. And I thought 3D printing would be another cool way for me to I can use a Dremel tool to cut those doors open and then use 3D printing to build an interior for it. So that's on the to-do list later. For now, it's just a cool piece sitting on my shelf. And my dog brought me his toy, stuffed alligator. Joey. Here. Get your alligator. Get your alligator. Get it. Go get it. No? You don't want to play now? What, did that Tonka truck scare you? He didn't like when the electronics on it make noise. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. Yeah, he guest stars in all of my Wednesday night live streams on Facebook when I'm doing my acoustic thing. He ends up getting on the chair next to me while I sing, or on the couch next to me while I sing, because I sit in front of my fireplace on a stool, and he'll either get on the chair or the couch next to me and lay, and he gets up and gets rambunctious sometimes. He does, don't you? And so, yeah, we hashtag Joey the dog. He's a good boy. You see him getting his alligator in the background. All right, so back to Blender. Sorry. Sidetracked to get a call from my son's school, and then. But yeah, that's looking pretty good now. It's got the holes for the screws, and they're set on both sides now, which is good. The fenders are attached to the hood and stuff, so we're making progress. As you can see, this it's a slow moving thing because I sit down and I tinker on it when I have time, and you can see my workflow isn't particularly all that dedicated, because I just do this for fun. I just sit and I enjoy the process of well, how do I make this a reality? How do I shape this into something that I want it to be? And so I draw very little out, if anything, on paper. A lot of times it's just literally shooting straight from the hip, and that's what I've done so far with this. Even the whole modular concept, which I'm sure I will find something that as I'm designing, it's going to create a problem for me, and I'm going to have to go back and revisit it, and maybe actually sit down and on paper engineer it a little bit better. But right now, what I think, if I design a front bumper that's designed to connect to the same connector pieces that are used to connect the frame panels together and the body panels together, then people will be able to print out these frame sections individually, as many of them as they need, then print out the body sections for whichever custom design or whichever, and maybe be able to even intermingle or customize some of these pieces that weren't originally intended to go together and make them go together. No, he's a purebred. He's a Bichon Frise. He's looking a little scruffy right now. He hasn't had a haircut in think like 4 months. But that's because I'm a musician. In the wintertime, things get really, really lean, and his haircuts are like $80. So, all right. So we've got that. I think we're ready to move on to the next section, and I think I'm going to move back before I come and back and put the grill and bumper. And it might be best to design the grill and bumper as one piece. They would print as one piece, connect here, and then that way you could print them in a different color, but they would be the same color as each other. Hmm. Like the green, that's just a color for reference because most of the stuff I've been designing so far is military uh, inspired. Yeah, I love my little Bichon. He's so smart. He's like scary smart, and he's a lovey little dog. All right, well, it's getting to be close to lunchtime here. I guess it's still fairly early out there, but I think I may go ahead and wrap this up for now. But I really appreciate you stopping by, Rover, and Country 3D. If you come back and watch the rest of this, thank you for stopping by. I'm going to continue working on this stuff, and I'll probably at least once a week just turn the camera on and sit here and mess around like this and chat with you guys because it's a lot of fun. Um, it's fun for me to design the stuff, and then it makes it even a little bit more fun when people join in and we just are just hanging out, just chilling. And eventually, hopefully, I have a 3D printer to be printing this stuff out, and then I can do reviews of the things that I'm making. And that's my cue to go because I got another call coming in that I got to take. But thanks for stopping by, Rover, and again, Country 3D. If you're watching this, or if you go back and watch this later, thank you for stopping by. It was awesome. Had a lot of fun, but I guess it's time for me to go get some lunch and then get back to serious, real world stuff. And I'll keep working on this, and I'll update you guys on the progress as it happens. Thanks a lot.